today I'm going to make a tofu, sweet and sour tofu with lots of vegetables. Again, when you're eating with anti-inflammatory food, it's not specific foods. Like if you eat ginger, it's not going to be your miracle cure if you eat just garlic. What you're looking for is a lot of balance. One of the best indicators of all is colour, like peppers, carrots, pineapple, green beans, gingers, chilies, tomatoes. The more colour you bring into a dish or into your diet in general, the better generally your diet is going to be. Getting all those fruit and veg, like fruit and harder fruits and veg, should, in particular vegetables, should be forming the vast majority of your diet. And then working down, like if you want treats, if you want a burger and things like that now and again, do, by all means. It's when you're eating too much of anything like that, that's when you're really going to run into problems. And with arthritis, you're going to feel it very fast. Trust me, I know. So with this, what I'm going to do is, I'm not adding any sugar into this little dish, this sweet and sour, but I'm using a tin of pineapples which have been tinned in their own juice. The juice is plenty sweet enough to make the sauce and to give enough sweetness into it. If anything, I'm going to have to add a little bit of rice vinegar to just give it a little bit of that acidity into it to get this sweet and sour. I'd strongly recommend when you're buying your pineapples to try and buy them from countries that actually grow and eat pineapples a lot. So Thailand, India, those kind of places, because a lot of the mass-produced ones you'll see in the supermarkets, they tend to be quite bland. They're not great pineapple. They're not nice and rich. And again, and it's important that you're not a syrup pineapple, but one that's actually been canned in its own juice. So what I've got is the juice from those pineapples. I'm going to just very quickly show you how to make this little sauce. Oops. And what I'm going to do is, I've separated the juice from the pineapple. I'm going to put about 3 tablespoons, a little bit of that. Just clean that first. And back to that, I'm going to add about 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. You're right, into that pineapple juice. And then, just to give a little bit of an interesting flavour into it, I'm going to use a star anise, whole star anise, into the pistol. I'm just going to break it up roughly. Just one is enough. So pretty potent. Just gives a little bit of complexity. You don't have to even break it up that much. I'm going to pop it in there. And then what I'm going to do is add about 2 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar. It's about 2 tablespoons, but I know I'm not measuring too accurately, but thereabouts. And then I'm going to use some potato flour. You could use arrowroot, would be another good choice. The problem with corn flour is, and you could use corn flour and cornstarch, but it tends to be cloudy, whereas the potato flour tends to give a lovely clear, sheeny kind of finish to the sauce. You'll get that in any of the oriental shops that you have around. I'm putting about 2 teaspoons of that into the juice. And I'm just going to whisk all that together. I'm going to be adding that into the sauce at the end of cookery. Now the other thing I'm going to do is with my tofu, to kind of give it a little bit more texture, I'm using a silken tofu. So that's my little sauce just ready. It's just because the potato flour is in it, when it hits the heat, it's going to thicken up nicely. If you're not too sure with the potato flour, use less, because it is quite potent and it will thicken very solidly, very quickly. Now with my tofu, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to just get some of the potato flour again. You could use corn flour or any other starch. I'm just going to, very simply, and using a fork in that, I'm just going to take the pieces of tofu and just toss them individually, knocking off any excess. I'm putting them on a plate. And I'm going to fry those a little bit in advance and just hold those hot and add them in there towards the end. It just gives a little more texture and it stops the tofu from actually breaking apart. So I'm not going to have you watch me do all of those, but I'm just going to prepare them like that. So that's just a little bits of tofu, just coated with a light piece of the potato flour. And then it's just a case of onto cooking and getting this lovely, colourful, fresh, fruity kind of dish in, which is, you know, a great all-around dish. It's it's sweet, it's sour, but it's got so many vegetables in it. The tofu is bringing the protein into it, and it's a good, well-balanced meal. Now the first job I'm going to do here is just fry off my tofu, and then I'm going to put that aside. So I'm going to add a little bit of coconut oil into a pan. And if you remember the tofu, which I had just dredged and in some potato flour, because I find that when you put the tofu into the stir fry itself, it ends up just falling into pieces, and you do want to get that nice little piece of texture into it. So we'll just warm that up a little bit. And then a fork is probably the easiest implement to use. Just gently place them down and we'll get a nice little piece of colour. I've actually seen this done in the air fryer as well, the tofu, and it seems to work. I haven't tried it myself, but it seems to work quite well. But not too high of a heat. I will just fry these off just to get a little bit of heat and texture into them. Just careful in case they get a little bit splashy and things like that. But it just makes the tofu far, far more interesting in the dish as a whole. So we just fry those away till we get a little bit of colour into it. And then I'm just going to store them aside, holding them warm until they're actually, and then add them in at the end with the dish. Oh, there's my tofu just frying away, just taking on a little bit of colour. And it's only now that I'm going to add a little pinch of salt onto those, just a pinch. If I add it on earlier, I find it draws out moisture in the tofu and they don't take on a nice colour. So you just want to take your time with those. They are very, very delicate at the beginning, but then once they start to cook, they harden up a piece and become much more easy to work with and develop a nice texture. But dredging them in that little piece of starch, potato flour, rice flour actually would be very good as well. Any of those kind of starches. And just getting this little bit of texture and colour so that you're not dealing with something that's just... Because again, a lot of times people get put off tofu because there's no texture to it, and people just kind of throw the old tofu into the stir fry or whatever else and it goes to mush and then it's horrible. But when you do it like this, you get a nice, interesting, crispy kind of texture, into it. And and the thing with tofu is, in itself, it's pretty got no flavour, but it's a fabulous carrier of flavours. Now, I could use sesame seed in this dish as well, and sesame oil, and a lot of people are going to have no issues. The reason I tend to avoid it with my anti-inflammatory cooking is that it is, unfortunately, a bit of a contributor to things like gout. So I thought it best, as I am cooking for arthritis, to leave it out. But again, if you don't have any reactions and it's not an issue for you, finishing this dish with a little bit of sesame or even using sesame oil to cook the tofus would be quite a good idea, because it gives a lovely nutty flavour into it. So that's cooked enough for me. So I'm just going to transfer those onto my plate. Just as they are. I'm just going to put them aside and hold them warm as I cook the remainder of the dish. So that's my tofu, just put aside, warm, and it's a lot more robust now that it's been cooked. A little bit of colour on it. Now into my pan. Next up, I'm going to add about a teaspoon again of my coconut oil, and I'm then going to add my carrots first, because my carrots will probably take the longest of the vegetables to cook, and I just want to get a little bit of flavour onto those as well. Yeah, we're just going to do a kind of a classic-y little kind of stir fry here, just to get those softened up a little bit nice and quickly. Add about a teaspoon of water, tight fitting lid, and just give it a few seconds like that. This is all a very fast process now at this point. That's all you need there, just to kind of get them started, if you like. Everything is on a nice high heat now at this point. Next up, I'm going to just add in my chilli and my ginger. You don't have to use this much chilli. If anything, you don't even need to use chilli in this dish at all. But and I've grated ginger. When I'm grating ginger, I just grate it with the skin on it. The grater tends to separate it then from the skin very easily, and it's really tasty like that, and it's very, very convenient. So my carrots, next up I'm going to just add in my red onions. Just let them tenderize up a little bit. Nice. And then again, if your pan is going dry, add a drop of water. Don't add oil. The mistake again when people always make it this kind of cookery, they think their pan is dry and it needs more oil. And that's a disaster of a thing to do. And if you like, again, stir fry is an incorrect real name really, because it's really a steaming technique. Put the salt in there just to draw out the moisture from the vegetables. And as soon as your onions just go a little bit tender like that, I'm going to add in my red peppers. Now you could use any vegetables here, but as you can see, this is all about getting colour into this dish. And again, just to speed everything along, drop of water. And then back on with your lid for just a few more seconds, just to get that heat in there, start getting the heat. You want this nice and crunchy vegetables as well. And as you can see, it would be really impossible to get the tofu nice by doing it any other way than just cooking it separately at the beginning. And it is your protein component to the dish. So, there's my vegetables. There's a lovely smell of ginger coming off there, which is again one of the more anti-inflammatory ingredients that you can actually use. And now into this, I'm going to take my pineapple. Now, if you remember, I separated the juice from the pineapple. Now, this is just a tin of pineapple that's been tinned in its own juice. And again, if you notice that the chunks of pineapple here, they're a lovely deep yellow colour, because the pineapple has been sourced and canned in a country that actually produces good quality pineapple. Unfortunately, a lot of the mass-produced stuff, that's not the case. And you get these very bland, underripe pineapples. But as you can see, just let that chill away there. Now we don't want there's plenty of juice coming out from that pineapple, so I'm just going to pop the lid on that and give it maybe about a minute just to tenderize and infuse all those flavors together. And want to get it good and hot before we add the sauces as well. So I'll just let that cook for 1 second more there. So I have it waited about 60 seconds there. As you can see, that's nice and warm, coming together nicely. And now we're just going to add in my fine beans. You could use broccoli in this. Anything at all, really. Next up, the pineapple juice from the tin. And if you remember, there's not a puree in this. And the potato flour, and just a little bit of the 1 star anise, just to give that a little bit of interest. Now, I've just tasted this, and just needs a little pinch of salt. As I didn't add any salt into the sauce either yet. And now with a little whisk. Another thing is just give it a little whisk up again before, because sometimes those starches can settle on the bottom. And now I'm just going to pour in that juice. And that should all thicken up nicely now. As you can see, it's thickening up very, very quickly. Make my sweet and sour sauce. And as you can see, it's only the fruit juice that I've used here. I probably should have used even a little less of the potato flour, but that's fine. If you find that it's a little bit on the thick side, very, very easy to add a little piece more water into it, or if you have a little bit more fruit juice, which I'm going to do. And that is basically our sweet and sour sauce done. And then you have a little taste of that. See if it needs a pinch more seasoning or anything like that. As you can see already. And then at the very, very end, and being very, very careful, we'll add in our tofu. just bringing in our nice little proteiny kind of area flavors into it. And as you can see, that is pretty much the dish. I'm going to let the tofu kind of on top and just let it take on some of that nice sweet and sour flavors. A little taste. And that is our sweet and sour vegetable tofu. A nice, simple little dish, all ready to eat. Using just a fruit juice as well. So enjoy it.